What's up, guys? I don't have a quirky intro for this one, but I just finished watching Takopis and crying like a little baby. This series caught me off guard immediately. Not off guard. I mean, I knew what I was in for. I knew it was gonna be like really sad, um, anime edgelord, horrible things, kindergartners, child abuse shit. You know what I mean? I usually have a bit of an aversion to that type of stuff. In the sense, I feel like it's almost trying too hard. You know, it's almost manipulative and trying to get you to cry. And here I am. But it caught my attention right away because I related to it a lot. Not in the sense that I've ever suffered anything like that, but I had an uncannily similar interaction in my life with someone who had. And I actually really related to Takopis. A little bit Ozma too, but it's weird for me because whenever I engage with stories like this and people like this, it's from a very different perspective because I feel like I basically come from planet Happy. Like I'm a pretty like psychologically unstable person. But that has absolutely nothing to do with how I was brought up or anything like that. I had a very loving, supporting family. I had loving, supporting friends. They taught me valuable ways to deal with conflict and low self-esteem. And I always felt like there were people I could talk to. And, if there ever were unfair expectations placed on me, I always knew that they, on some level, did come from a place of appreciation. But I've met people who just they don't come from a house like that, and I've always wanted to help, as much as I could. Everybody wants to help as much as they can, and for what instabilities I do have, I've always been really insecure that I'm just not smart enough. That there's just like a limit of what I can do to help people. And that's something that Takopis had as well because he's relentlessly optimistic. He wants nothing but the best for everyone. He just wants to see everybody smile. But he just can't. He's just not good enough. He'll never be able to fix everything, no matter what. And it's not something that should be, expected. Okay. I really am just crying on my rant channel. I might delete this if it's too embarrassing, but I really identified with the little bugger. You got to know when to quit at some point. You, when you're just not going to be good enough, when you're just not going to be able to help. It's so hard. Because there's no easy answers. And so many times, stuff like this comes up where, the best thing you can do and the ultimate message of this story is, to be communicative, to have trust in other people, to maintain as positive of outlook as you can. And that's all very true. And I feel that I'm able to do that. But there have just been some situations in my life and a lot of people close to me in their life where you do all that and it still just doesn't work out. It's like in the end of this story, they basically needed magic to, fix how fucked up the situation was. And, magic's not real. So yeah, it definitely hit me right in the feels there. I immediately, when I started this series, episode 1, there's a 4th grader who makes an attempt on her own life, successfully takes her own life. And I was looking into the rates of that within elementary schoolers, and I was shocked. I mean, for one thing, it's hard to even conceive of how somebody that young would physically be able to enact that. But at the same time, it's not common. It's not common, but it absolutely happens. And that was just really eye-opening to me. It's always difficult to wrap your head around a situation getting so bad when somebody's so young and them having so little supervision that they end up, against all odds, doing something drastic about it. I know people who have gone through very similar experiences of childhood bullying and parental neglect and all that, and it's something that I'm glad nobody that I know directly ever did anything about. But I had so many days where I would lie awake at night wondering if they would, and sorry, one sec. Sorry. Okay. God, this is this is terrible. I know how corny this is, but I try to use the second channel, YouTube in general, as like a way to explore my feelings about things and thoughts and emotions, and I want to make it as candid as possible. So even if nobody likes it, I know it's weird. I want this to be out there. But yeah, Takopis is like a little stuffed animal guy, right? He's a little piece of unconditional love. And if you look at people who were, assaulted as children, there's like much higher rates of being really into stuffed animals and like Sanrio and all that stuff. And it sort of represents an unconditional love, a safety, a comfort. You sleep alongside them, and it feels like there's somebody with you, some sort of a protective force that comes from just being with another person. It staves loneliness. It's just a very approachable and gentle way to hack your brain into thinking you have some sort of close friend or human companionship when you're too scarred to actually go out and forge one because you think you're just going to get hurt again. And so that's why I was so sad by the end, where it's like even what that represents to people, the little bundle of endless positivity, who's just simply of a good nature, had to go. It wasn't enough. If they wanted to fix everything, they had to abandon that. And I'm not saying that like anybody who is deeply traumatized should ever feel the need to like abandon their coping mechanisms or anything like that. But it really is just shines a light on the fact that it's a bit of a Band-Aid more than anything, and you absolutely need that human connection. It can't just be as simple as the reassurance and the constant togetherness and all that. That stuff is all very helpful, but you need to sort of go out there and tussle with the stars, wrestle with the law, shake your homie's hand after breaking his jaw. You know what I'm saying? To quote the great Kenny Okoye. He's quoting somebody else, I don't know. But you have to go out there and you have to try to forge new relationships, and really there's nothing a Takopis can do. I mean, Takopis, really, I was waiting for him to get corrupted the entire time, basically, because so many horrible things were happening to him. People were beating him and stabbing him and emotionally manipulating him and causing horrible things to befall him for no good reason. But he just stayed positive the entire time. And, he was a little bit harsh with his, like, mom or whatever back home when he was like, no, I need to go back and kill this girl. Which even that ultimately was born of a naivety of what that means and ultimately a positive intention to make Marina happy again. But he never falls into it. He's really just not a person. He's just like an endless force of good, and that makes it sound really weird for me to say I relate to him. Maybe it's more apt to say I relate to, Azuma, who placed, a great emphasis on his intelligence and his inability to help people, his inability to get the people close to him, to care for him in the ways he was looking to be cared for. But it's just sort of, I think, what I've been for people in my life. that I think of Takopis, and it makes me wonder: is there a more vulnerable, uglier side of maybe myself that I could have, that was too afraid to expose these people, that I could have, that would have been more helpful? I I don't know. It's just so hard. There's so many situations that are just unfixable, and it's so hard to think that it's not just that you're not smart enough to fix them. You can have all the positive intention in the world, but you might just not be in the right spot, and that's sort of what made me cry so much about this series. The messaging that I relate to the most, because in the end he's unable to do things as he is, and he has to sacrifice himself so that the other people can deal with each other, instead of like constantly trying to just like quell the conflict and stuff. They had to like basically not hash it out, because he was still like helpful in spirit, but he had to be there and help them resolve the conflict with each other in a painful way that never totally heals. They're still bickering about it so long later, and I'm sure it's not like a totally functional relationship. But let's talk about some lighter note. The music is very touching here. It's very good. I didn't feel like the score was overly emphasized like it is in a lot of dramatic, edgy anime, but it was definitely there. The art style is amazing. I mean, like when you're painting these like traumatized freaking elementary school age characters, this is the type of art style that's perfect. They all look like kind of like lanky and powerless, but they have these big heads, and any slight discoloration on their face, whether it just be from like a facial expression and blushing or because they're hurt or whatever, it shows up extremely strongly. It's kind of like a little bit like formless and unpredictable. The way they animate, they're kind of gangly, and their joints are like overly sort of emphasized, and they bend kind of weird, and they're all very pale. It's a very effective art style, and that's the first thing I noticed here. The art design is absolutely immaculate here. There's some really, really great moments of direction that never really take away from the overall drama of a scene or of the series. It's never like that one author says, like, kill your darlings. It never feels like they're trying to just go so hard with the directing for it to like be impressive in its own right. It's always just to amplify the emotions of a scene. And I don't think this was a perfectly written story or anything. Some of the sci-fi elements were a little bit weird. The ending was a little bit unsatisfying to me personally, but that's just because it made me cry like a little baby. And Takopis couldn't do anything. It's just that he had to use magic, I guess. But hey, it got a fuck of a reaction out of me. Made me think about a lot of different times in my life, and as embarrassing as this video was, maybe you guys in the comments could talk to me about it. Like give your opinions and stuff like that. Maybe you're not as much of a big baby as me, and you're able to engage with it on a little bit more of an intellectual level. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to this one. Weird one. None of my other videos are like this. Don't be scared away from my channel. I just wanted to sort of record something candid in reaction to this show. And to my mom, if you're listening, please don't worry. I'll talk to you later. And I really mean that. I'm in a good enough spot where I can, engage with these feelings and emotions safely. So shout outs to my mom. See you guys in the next one.